please a round of applause for Kystal Ball.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm just going to quickly share my story because I think it is such a fabulous example of the wonderful work that this organization does. But I will do it quickly because I want to hear from Carol and Heather. So I ran for Congress last election cycle in Virginia. I went through a tough primary where there was lots of misogyny, but we won't get into that part of my story. And I won, and I was the Democratic nominee. Now, as a young woman, and I will say particularly as an attractive young woman, one of the things that I faced early on was I had trouble getting people to take me seriously as a candidate. You know, before I even said a word, when I just put up my little website and I hadn't even said anything, the right-wing bloggers were calling me airhead, dicks, etc., etc. That was the box they wanted to put me in. So I worked very, very hard throughout my campaign to be a serious candidate, to be a credible candidate. With the help of the Campaign Forum, I raised $1 million from over 6,000 donors, so I was a serious candidate and a credible candidate. Things are going along very well, and I think it was about a month before Election Day, a right-wing blogger posted some photos of me from when I was, I think, 22 years old, just out of college, at a party with my then husband, and the pictures were a bit racy, to say the least. But again, nothing illegal at a private party with my then husband. Well, when they hit the blogs, you can imagine, after working so hard to put together this campaign, I was absolutely devastated. And I really didn't know what to do. One of the things that's a challenge when you're a candidate is there are so few people who have been through the same thing that you can get advice from. Well, I had the good sense enough to think to call Sam. Now, I had heard Sam's lovely quote before, and I knew she'd been through some stuff on her campaign. So I thought, you know, here's a woman who's been through it, and this is an organization that truly, truly did support me from the very beginning. Let me give Sam a call and see what she says to do. Well, not only did Sam have the life experience of having gone through very difficult circumstances on her campaign, but they had also literally just finished this research that she was referencing in their Name It, Change It campaign that showed that the advice that women usually get to ignore the attacks, to not address it, to hope it just sort of goes away, was exactly the wrong thing to do. So when I poured out my heart to Sam and I said, here's what's going on, it's so awful and I don't know what to do, she said, first of all, you didn't do anything wrong, so get that out of your head right now. And second of all, you have to go to camera, you have to do it tonight, you have to call it out, and you have to use the word sexist. Very important that you do that. So meanwhile, I'm driving back to my campaign office, and it's a big rural district in Virginia, so that took a long time. And by the time I got to my campaign office and talked to my campaign manager and all the people that are supposed to be advising me and my highly paid consultants and all these people, well, they had already gotten together and decided, you're not going to talk about it. You're going to ignore it. Some of them recommended I deny that it was me in the photos, which is just unbelievable. But fortunately, I knew that I had Women's Campaign Forum behind me. I knew I had Sam behind me. I was also very blessed to have my husband saying, this is the right thing to do, not just for you in this campaign, but also to show other young women who may have some party photos out there or something else like that, that you can overcome this and you don't have to be shamed in this way. You can come out and be strong and still have a successful campaign. So I sort of gathered my strength and went to camera that night and did exactly what Sam said. I called it sexist, and then I said, you know, it's really a disservice to the people in this district who don't want to see these personal attacks. They want to talk about the economy. They want to talk about healthcare. They want to talk about education. And then I did a sort of national media tour. Everybody who asked for an interview, I gave it to them over a 2-day period, and then that was it, and we moved on. Anecdotally, I knew that it had gone well when the morning after I went to camera, I went to a local Ruritan Club meeting, which I don't know if you all have ever been to a local Ruritan Club meeting in Virginia, but it's not exactly a progressive constituency. Most of the people there were, you know, over 60 and white and male, and they weren't too impressed with my campaign. And when I walked in the door, the first guy came up to me and said, you know what, I wasn't even really following this campaign, and I saw you on the news last night, and I got to tell you, what they did to you is awful. I wasn't going to vote for you before, but I am now. So that was the first indication that was like, okay, this was the right thing to do. And then about 2 weeks later, we took a poll to see, okay, how did we actually do with this response? And we asked people, have you seen anything about Kystal Ball in the media? If you have, did it improve your impression, not change it, or diminish your impression of this woman? And shockingly, 80% of people who said they'd seen something about me in the media, and keep in mind, this is the only thing in my race that the media covered at all, right? 80% of the people that had seen something about me, either it improved their impression or it didn't change it at all. So no question that it was actually a net benefit in my race. It wasn't enough of a benefit, unfortunately, but the response was the right way to go, and thank God that I had Women's Campaign Forum and a little bit of sense enough to call Sam when I needed her. So that's my story. Thank you guys.
Here's my question, because legitimate sexism, I get it. But then you have Sarah Palin who goes and says the dumbest things in the world, and if anybody questions her, she's like, sexism. How do we balance that?
Well, I'll speak to this, and then I think I'll let Sam speak to this as well. One thing that Women's Campaign Forum does as well is even if it's women who don't agree with our values as progressives, they will defend them when they are legitimately attacked in a sexist way, which Christina Donnell and Sarah Palin and Sharon Angle all really were. Now, I think the line exists between talking about, okay, here's why it's factually, her statements are factually inaccurate, or here's why that policy doesn't make sense for America, versus she's dumb. I mean, that's the difference, right? It's the difference between the personal attacks, and I have seen many, many times people who want to put her in the box of she's pretty but dumb. And I think that's where it is legitimately sexist, and we shouldn't stand for it because it doesn't, it's not about Sarah Palin, it's about diminishing all women.